Right. Chapter 20 Chemistry, question number 1 and 2. In each of the chemical reactions A to C, which species gains electrons? Then there are 4 questions. Which species loses electrons? Which species is the oxidizing agent? Which species is the reducing agent? So if you have any doubt, you have to remember uh, oil rig, oxidation is loss of electrons. If something is getting oxidized, that is the reducing agent, right? So losing the second answer, which species loses electrons, that is what that is the reducing agent. So part 2 and 4 answers are going to be the same, right? Part 2 and 4 answers are going to be the same. Then which species gains electrons? That is oil rig. Reduction is gain of electrons. So if something gains electrons, that is the oxidizing agent. So the answer for 1 and 3 are the same, right? So now let's try to figure out what happens here. In A, CuCl2 plus Fe becomes FeCl2 plus Cu. Now we have to look at their charges, right? CuCl2 plus Fe gives you FeCl2 plus copper. Right. Now let's look at their charges. Here, because it's a part of a molecule, it has +2 charge, and chlorine has -1 charge, but there are 2 of them. Then Fe, because it is a monoatomic particle here, it is 0. It doesn't. It is not. There is no charge on it. But here, when it comes to this part, Fe has become +2 and Cl remains -1. Cu has become 0. So how did Fe? Now Fe was 0 to +2. It has become 0 to +2. What has happened? Plus means the protons don't increase, but electrons have gone away. So that means Fe has lost electrons. Loss means oil oxidation is loss. So our answer for the first one is which species gains electrons. Let's figure out what gains electrons. So then Fe has lost electrons. Then FeCl, then copper has turned from +2 to 0. So that means it has gained 2 electrons to cancel out the +2 charge. So the copper has changed from +2 to 0. So it has gained electrons. So we have all the details that we need to answer the questions. So let's go to the question and answer them. Which species gains electrons? So which one gains electrons? It is copper. But you have to remember it is the copper 2 plus. Yeah, copper 2 plus gains electrons. So you have to write the answers correctly. Copper 2 plus gains electrons, and copper 2 plus in CuCl2. Then the second part of the question is which species loses electrons? Which loses electrons? We figured out electrons are lost by iron. Fe loses electrons. So then which species is the oxidizing agent? Oxidizing agent is what gets what gets reduced or rig, right? Reduction is gain of electrons. So that means Cu2 plus in CuCl2 is the oxidizing agent. Then of course Fe becomes the reducing agent because it is what gets oxidized, right? I hope you understood that. Then we go to part B, copper and bromine giving Cu2 plus and 2Br minus. Copper plus bromine giving Cu2 plus N 2Br minus, isn't it? Yes. Two Br minus. Right. So what has happened? Copper has changed from 0 to plus 2. What has happened? It has lost electrons. Oil oxidation. So that is the reducing agent. It is the reducing agent. Right? Then bromine has become minus plus 2, 0 to minus. It has come from 0 to minus. Br2 has become 0 to minus 1. So that means it has gained electrons. Oil rig reduction is gain. That is the oxidizing agent. So that is the oxidizing agent. So we can answer all of our questions. So the first part is, which species gains electrons? Electrons are gained by bromine. Then which species loses electrons? Electrons are lost by copper. Which species is the oxidizing agent? Oxidizing agent is what gains electrons, so that is bromine. And which species is the reducing agent? So that is, the reducing agent is what loses electrons, so that is copper. Right. Then we have to go for part C. Lead oxide plus sulfur dioxide becomes lead sulfate. Lead oxide plus sulfur dioxide becomes lead sulfate. Right. So now let's see what has happened here. You have to be very careful when marking the charges. Now sulfate has a minus 2 charge. So as a result, lead here has a plus 2 charge. Now you have to be very careful because lead has two oxidation states. Lead can be plus 2 or plus 4 as given here. Usually it is plus 2 PbO, but it can have PbO2 oxidation state as well. So then lead has had plus 4 here because oxygen is always minus 2. Sulfur here is plus 4. Now what has happened to sulfur here? What has happened to sulfur here? You might have to take SO2 as a single unit as well. So let's forget about sulfur, SO2. Look at sulfur and try to figure out what has happened to sulfur. Sulfur, now here O2 minus, it is plus 4. Now let's come to here. Lead is plus 2. Oxygen is minus 2 into 4 is minus 8. Minus 8. Then here plus 2 is there. Then to cancel out, it has to become plus 6. So sulfur has changed from plus 4 to plus 6. Right? Plus 4 to plus 6. So lead has changed from plus 4 to plus 2. So what happens to lead? Lead has gained electrons. Gaining means what? Oxidizing agent. Then sulfur, what has happened to it? Sulfur has changed from plus 4 to plus 6. It has lost electrons. Losing electrons is what? Oil oxidation, that is the reducing agent. So we have our answers. The first one is, which species gains electrons? Electrons are gained by Pb in PbO2. Then that is also the answer for oxidizing agent. That is for part 3. Again it is Pb. Then what loses electrons? Part 2, which loses electrons? It is sulfur, which loses electrons. And it is also the answer for the fourth part, which is the reducing agent. I hope you understood. If you have any further questions, please raise them.